All right, shalom, friends. I actually ended up making two videos on my Rob on the Rock channel for Exodus 1, or Leviticus 1 and 2. For the TelosTorah video here, I'm going to do one verse from Leviticus 2. It's verse 13. And it's a really peculiar verse because we don't see anything else like it in the Torah. And it says, V'chol korban min chatecha ba melach timlach. ולא תשבית מלח ברית אלוהיך מעל מנחתך. על כל קורבנך תקריב מלח. So melach is the word salt. Melach is salt. It says every gift of your grain offering, your mincha, ba melech timlach, with the salt, you will salt. So ba melach is with the salt, you will salt. Velo tashbit, notice that's from Shabbat, but in a hifil. Lo tashbit melach, you shall not cease. Lo tashbit melach brit Elohecha, the salt of the covenant of your God. Me'al minchatecha, from upon your mincha. Al kol korbancha takriv melach, upon or with every korban you will offer melach, salt. So here's the only place we learn about melach brit Elohecha, the salt of the covenant of your God. Well, of course, what does salt mean? Salt is a preservative. Salt is something that's from the earth that has a lot of value. People would get paid in salt in the ancient days because it was something it had value for trade. It had strong economic value. But it also brought flavor. It brought flavor. If you've had bread without salt, even matzah, even unleavened bread, but then bread with a little bit of salt, you know the difference. If you've ever had a steak without salt, and then you have it with salt, your favorite steamed vegetable. You know, you could have some maybe steamed spinach or something, or broccoli, with salt and without salt. Salt makes a big difference, doesn't it? So there's an image here, an illustration or metaphor, I believe, that has to do with salt. So literally, yes, salt is to be included. It's called the melach brit Elohecha, the salt of the covenant of your God. So it has to do with the relationship with God, in specifically the covenant. The covenant is the binding. It's what connects God to his people. And what is the underlying truth of the covenant is that it is a covenant he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is God's promise that in your seed all the nations of the world will be blessed. That is salt. I want to share, it's a connective, right? It connects. We're going to look at a couple verses where salt is mentioned. I know I have the red letter here. It's kind of intense looking, isn't it? But Yeshua in the Sermon on the Mount says, you are the salt of the earth. If the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by people. So salt has value. It has to, for something that is supposed to stay salty. The relationship with God is to stay salty. Now, in our English today, salty can mean someone who has like an unfavorable or a harsh, maybe, attitude. Maybe in certain instances you might use the word that way. But here, it has to do with tastefulness, not tastelessness, tastefulness. That is the idea of joy and connection and delight and favorableness, good taste. That is what we're supposed to represent in our walk with God. We don't want to be without value for people. Mark 9 captures another instance of Yeshua teaching that salt is good. Salt is good. But if the salt becomes unsalty, with what will you make it salty again? Have salt in yourselves. Have shalom with one another. So Yeshua teaches us what is meant by salt. To have peace with one another. In as much as you're able to be at peace with all people. Now that's not always possible. But you can be a seeker of peace. You can be a person who seeks to have peace. And that is having salt in yourselves. It's not peace if you just get run over, right? If you're just a doormat for somebody else. That's you've lost your saltiness. Saltiness means that you have the truth. And you hold to the truth, and you're able to speak the truth in love. And you seek to have peace with one another. But you don't fold and lose your own value or avoid speaking truth. That's not saltiness. Saltiness is standing strong in your covenant relationship with God, in his love, in his peace, and seeking to love one another under that wonderful covering of his love. Finally, we have Paul's epistle to the Colossians here, Colossians 4. He says, your speech must always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person. It's the same point. Salt with one another, peace with one another, speech seasoned with grace. So what do we have here? We have grace, we have peace, and we have tastefulness, something that is good, something that has to do with our knowledge, our security and knowledge that we belong to God. That's the covenant. That is the covenant. You belong to God. God's greatest commandment is to love him. The second is like it, as Yeshua teaches us, love your neighbor as yourself. That's the salt of the covenant. To abide in the truth of who God is, that we're part of a covenant with him, we're members of a covenant with him, and we have an obligation for love, which is grace and peace, of course, with one another, in as much as we're able. That's the greatest commandment. And this is, remember, greater is this commandment than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. All right, friends, shalom, shalom. This week I did 3 videos, 2 on the Rob on the Rock channel. That second one was by a mistake. I meant to do that one on the TelosTorah. But anyway, so we have a little bonus video this week. All right, friends.